reach out to everyone, have as many conversations as you can. Some of the Harvard guys that had great careers, they were calling me, not that I had a ton of insight, but they were calling me once a month, just asking questions and, who else do you know? So I would really utilize this network. There's a ton of mutual respect amongst people who played hockey at any level. Other advice is it's a lot easier to find a job when you have one, right? You might not find the perfect fit, but it's going to show that you're a hard worker, that you can make a commitment. But I think what made you successful in hockey will make you successful in the real world.
We are back. Tom, Rence. We'll introduce Rence in a little bit, but thank you everybody for jumping in on the next episode of Pucks to Properties. Before we get rocking and rolling, Pucks to Properties brought to you by two companies, Riva Global, which is a premier virtual assistant service company in the nation. Service anyone in real estate, out of real estate, any company that we want to get your time back to do any task that can be done over the computer or phone. That's the type of company Riva Global is. It's a virtual assistant staffing company. Also, Perch Rock, that's our real estate arm. We do business in multiple states. We buy and sell real estate, not on the brokerage, but as the investment side. We also do have a brokerage as well within our company, but we're not talking about that right now. Tom Mealy, why do we do this podcast?
God, I love the enthusiasm. It is impeccable. It's infectious. But no, Rence, thank you for being here. The reason for this, we chat a little bit offline before this, is to grow the game and to essentially give back to the game that we played for so long and talk to guys that made that transition from the sport of hockey into business. Specifically, this platform is a real estate platform, but we've had multiple guests on the show that, transition to different walks of life. In this instance, we got a local guy here that, is from the same town as Bob's business partner. So again, it all ties together. And if we could all, help each other out in some way, shape or form, that is the reason for this, and to give back to the game and help guys transition, from that life into what the next chapter is going to be. And that's why we do this.
Love it. So, Rence Coassin, just to give it a little background, Harvard graduate, 4-year graduate. I know we're going to tell this story. You got a lot of different business. You're an entrepreneur, and obviously part of that is real estate. So, Rence, why don't you give us a little bit of background, and then we'll dig into your story to make sure that players that are playing right now or that have retired have ideas about your story and what they can and can't do, and et cetera, et cetera. So what do we got?
Awesome. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. So I'm in Hamden, Connecticut right now. This is where I was born and raised. I live in Fairfield currently, which has been a great move for me and my family. So my hockey journey started Hamden House League. I ultimately played at Harvard University, which was a dream. My childhood babysitter, Brett Novak, played there, and I just always wanted to follow in his footprints. So being a Hamden kid outside of New Haven, everyone thought Yale would be the first choice, and it probably would have been if they were knocking on my door immediately. But it was a great ride. I stopped playing in 2013. I played briefly in Italy afterwards. And I got thrown right into business. My father passed away in July of 13. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that later on, but I got thrown right into my family security company that was founded in the beginning of 2012, American Total Protection, where we're in Connecticut and Florida, have about 70 employees right now, 3 locations, and we do everything from full service electrical contracting, so an electrical business, fire security alarms, test and inspections, cameras, keyless entry, intercoms, really anything related to low voltage and now high voltage. So it's been a lot, the last 10 years, but it's a lot of fun.
Love it, love it, love it. From the hockey rink to entrepreneurship. And obviously, part of that, you own commercial real estate as well. We'll get into that. You also have, you invested in also Serve Pro franchise out of South Shore, Mass, with an ex-player. So a lot of this, the point of a lot of what we talk about is tapping into our network as well. So it's kind of interesting that that's one of the messages that you sent over, which is actually really cool. And you also own some college rentals and some mixed use retail and apartments. So let's dig into this. You had a family business. Did you learn any of the business? Were you interested in jumping in that business, or did you just kind of get thrown in the fire when you were in school? So what did that look like?
Yeah. So my dad was a Hamden guy, loved hockey, could never really afford to play it. He was one of five. My grandfather, who's still with us, did an amazing job with my grandmother, sent all of them to college and my dad to law school, but just, couldn't swing hockey. So my dad always wanted me to play, which I did, and I loved it. And he was one of the most active business people I've ever met. He was a corporate attorney at a firm called Robinson & Cole, which in Connecticut, I believe at the time was the largest law firm that was based here. And on the side, he had invested in various businesses. So at one point, he had a limo company. At another point, he had a private label ice cream company. He had a titanium distribution company. And then he ultimately got into alarm. So I always saw him putting deals together. Mm-hmm. I would be the kid at the table, falling asleep at a meeting. So I was always around it. It was always my dream to get into some type of business. With my dad, and the goal, you go to Harvard, you play a sport, you naturally try to get the internship in finance, you try to do the finance route afterwards. And that, I don't know if I wanted to do that, but I kind of wanted to do it on my own and then go back and work with my best friend, who was my dad. And he passed away after a 6-month battle with cancer, and didn't really have a choice. Like, all those businesses I mentioned kind of became liabilities rather than assets. And we had to figure it out and scratch and claw for I would say the first 7 years it was just a battle every single day. And with, good counsel and, a lot of family support, we're doing well today, and excited for what's to come.
Fantastic. And so after school, so let's walk a little about this. You played 1 year in Italy though, right?
I did. Yeah. A brief, didn't quite, I realized in November, so early on in the season, that it wasn't for me. I was in a very small town. It was beautiful. I would say 6,000 people or less. But, after 2 months of going to the rink, working out, having an espresso at lunch, and be like, what am I going to do with my day? I was like, I need to work next year.
How cold was it? Because I played in Milan and I went to all those. We went to Bolzano. I know.
Yeah.
How do you say it? Ritten? Is that
Ritten or Renan, depending if it's German or Italian?
Yeah.
I was telling you boys,
those rinks are freezing.
Yeah. It was a good experience. I mean, I don't think it was beautiful. My now wife came over a month in, which was great. But I reached out to my dad. I'm like, I think I need to work next year. Like, what should we do? And he said, well, if you're serious about it, you got to come home and start interviewing, which was interesting. I don't think for him to say that was a little weird, because he kind of was always like, have fun, work hard, you'll figure it out. But so it ended pretty quick. But no, very happy with my decision.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting going over there. And that's a lot of times we talk about is that transition. So let's talk a little bit about that. So your dad obviously gave you advice to start interviewing. It wasn't, hey, take over my business.
No.
Hey, let's work together. So talk a little bit about that, because that's kind of important. You did get thrown into business, but what was your mindset like, saying, all right, now I got to interview? What were you feeling?
So I was taught that the hockey advice I got from the very young age, and I never had to fight, which is probably a good thing, because I didn't play. I played juniors in the EJ. But my dad always said, just be the craziest guy in the room. The craziest guy always wins. So with that said, you kind of translate it to being the hardest worker in the room.
Yeah.
So I knew that, I wasn't going to probably rely on my Excel skills and, my financial modeling ability. I was just going to have to work really, really hard. So I didn't turn to my university network, I turned to my hockey network. And I mean, you guys see it the parents become best friends, right? And they really get to know each other. You get to know their story. So each one of my internships, and I had great internships in college, were a result of a hockey friend's father. Nice. And it's a really tight knit crew, which I still utilize today. So the mindset was I need to talk to as many people as possible. And I give this advice now for people interviewing. Interviewing is a skill, right? Like, I mean, this is only my second podcast. This is a skill. You got to do it. And I'm not good at it, but you have to get the reps in, whether it's interviewing or, something else along those lines if you want to improve. So started lining up some interviews, and then just absolutely got thrown into the fire with my father passing away. And it goes back to like being the hardest worker that I started as commission sales guy, right, in my family's business, which is a little awkward, right? You're the owner, but you're trying to earn it. And just like you would in hockey, you can't walk into a new locker room and just kind of, you need to earn that respect rather than tell people what you've done in the past and things like that.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that, because Tom and I talk about this on every podcast about the network, right? It's funny, you didn't go to your Harvard network, you went to your hockey network. So why is that? Because if I look at it as an outside person looking in, I went to BU, and unfortunately this is back in 2000 or 95 to 96. I didn't go back to any network at all in college, right? Because back then it was. You know what your network was? Making the NHL. That's all there was. It wasn't really a business focus, but Harvard's a little different. So why did you decide to go to, the hockey network rather than the Harvard network?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one, it's probably where I felt most comfortable. And two, I think like the way I played, it was just being a really hard worker, and never kind of leaving anything on the table, where I thought maybe that would be more recognizable, like in that network. And I believe like my age now, it's starting to get fun, right? With looking at fellow graduates, because they just grinded so hard like for the first 5-10 years. And you're starting to see now, like some of my best friends, it's so nice seeing the success, and I'm so proud of them. So I think it might be different today. I would probably rely on that Harvard network.
That's right.
At the time, I think these guys were just like, slaves of the man, and just, I don't know how much juice they had. Right. So that's probably another reason, but it's so great to see and one of my biggest regrets about university is like, you're in a bubble, right? I mean, maybe you hang out with the hockey guys. Like we hung out with the hockey guys and the lacrosse guys, and there's so many special people at every university that you don't really go outside of your bubble. But it's great now to see like my core group of guys is just, everyone is doing so well. It's great to see.
Yeah, just so everyone knows a little background, Hamden, Connecticut is a very blue collar, hardworking. I know it's changed today, but back in the day, my years, your years, very, very blue collar and hardworking individuals within the whole city back. And I know it's changed a little bit, but I know the whole world's changed. But that's the background that.
My dad's generation, I think his senior year, like they sent 14 kids D1. Right. Like they were the real deal. And then since then, obviously John Quick is the big name, who's a Hamden guy.
Yep. Yeah. And see Todd Hall, a couple other guys.
Yeah. Todd's the best.
Yeah. So I played with him. He's a little older than me, but I played with him when he was in college as well. So going back, it's pretty funny, but it's a blue collar background. So let's talk a little bit about that. Who do you stay into? Actually, let's take a step back. Let's talk a little bit about your journey. You got in, you were thrown in the fire. Now all of a sudden you're a business owner, but you're all commission, right?
Yeah.
Walk us through how you got to where you are step by step, because you have a lot of stuff. You own your security fire suppression business. You also have commercial real estate. You also invested in ServPro, college rentals. Walk us through that process and how you got into it, because now you're drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to be profitable, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So like getting into, we had a minority partner who ultimately that relationship ended, which really allowed me to grow in about 2018. But there was someone running the day-to-day in the alarm business.
Okay.
By being out and about, like, right, I love deals. It brings me so much, excitement, whether it's a $35 a month alarm or buying a piece of real estate. And the hardest part I've realized about any deal is getting a seat at the table, right? Like, there's so many people. Yeah, I want to buy that cash flowing asset. That sounds great. Like, but how do you get that conversation? And I think being out and about and being in sales is really what kind of launched me. I think I remember when I got my first phone call from somebody who was interested in partnering with me on a flip, right? And I was so excited. I'm like, I've heard about this. Like, what's it like? So started really small in Hamden. We probably like $120,000 transaction, and learned, through one real estate flip. And then that same partner, who's a builder, we did a 5-lot subdivision, and it was petrifying. But I learned a ton. But I was really out over my skis, financially and just comfort zone.
So let's walk there, because this is important. I think this is really important, because you got thrown into your one business. How did you then? Because a lot of us get shiny object syndrome, right?
Right.
You see something, you get sold into something. They probably figured out, like, why did they go to you with an opportunity? Because you're in a different business. Go to you with an opportunity in real estate. Like, how did that work?
So it goes back. I mean, I think going back to, like, my father was just known as a deal guy. Like, he just was always, and if he didn't want to do it, like, he knew someone who would. So I have a vast network. I think I get too much credit for my network. Right. But I think I was approached, I think, because they knew, which was great. Just my family's tendency to be interested in deals.
And figure out how to find money, like
Right.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's the most important thing is, right, you guys you got to close, right? Yep. And that's kind of morphed into, it's a delicate balance, I've realized. With, you want to be known as the investor who gives deal flow, right? Because realtors, they get paid on commission, so they want to get paid, so they want to bring deals to people who are going to buy them. And also deal certainty, right? You got to be known as the guy. Your reputation's at risk if you're representing me. That when Rence says he's going to close on a property, he actually does. So as time went on, I was kind of scarred. I made money on the flips and the new builds, but I did not make as much as I should have, right? And when things slow down, I was learning about construction, and I'm still learning about it. I was just like, it's a lot easier to put this in the market. Right at the time, the stock market was cranking. It's like, okay, I might have made 14%, but the market made 18 last year, and it was liquid, and it's a lot easier to do that. So I was on the sidelines, and I was approached, a good friend of mine. We did a flip together in Bridgeport, and he looked at me, he goes, Rence, why don't you keep it? And I really appreciate, he was a realtor, right? He stood to make a commission, and he was like, these college kids are, at the time, it was like $600 a bedroom. So you just hold on to it. And that was in 17. I had one. And then in 19, the timing was great. Like, I closed on 7 more, like, pretty quickly. But then COVID happened, and I went to refi, and we made it happen, but just even navigating that, like, just the underwriting guidelines at the time, it was absurd. And I would have 30 of them if they actually let me refi, like how you could in, an environment 2 years ago.
Yep. Well, how do you manage those? Because so let's talk a little bit about managing businesses, and because these are all different businesses. So you have 70 employees, right? And American Total Protection Company. And now you also have how many units do you have right now?
So I view it as like doors because of bedrooms, right? So like I have 34 Bridgeport students.
34 headaches.
Yeah.
So how do you manage those 34 headaches, also managing a business? Because I have multiple businesses as well.
Yeah.
So
it's a great, I've learned not to sweat the small stuff, right? Because I've only been working for 10 years, but losing my dad, having a tumultuous breakup with the next partner, scratching and clawing for 7 years, like worrying about payroll on a Friday, right? And it's Wednesday. So I've gone through that. So I realize, what big problems are versus what, the very trivial stuff when a salesperson says the customer's upset with them over a deal. So I really manage my Connecticut office from the alarm perspective, right? I'm in it. I'm checking the schedule. My office opens the customer service. So I have a great manager and president in Florida. So Florida can function on its own, right? We talk probably once or twice a day, but I have a great manager there who took me 2.5 years to find, and he's been amazing. And then in my Surf Row franchise, my partner Corey Glenn, who I played youth hockey with in Hamden, he's my partner and he's the operator. So Corey's all in. He sold his house, in North Haven. He's a Hamden guy, but he made it to North Haven, and he moved up to the South Shore for a year. Now he lives in the Seaport. So Corey runs that. So I guess my advice would be like really good managers, which is a lot easier said than done. It really comes down to character, right? There's smart people out there. There's hard workers out there, but you need to find someone who's going to watch your money closer than their own. And I'm lucky to have found those people. And then when it comes to the real estate, like I have some scale now in one town. So I'd like to think I'm a really good client for a small plumber or HVAC guy, right? Like he gets paid on time. He has these homes that are all in the area. My primary residence is 2 miles away. So when it comes to HVAC and plumbing, I have a great person. I own an electrical business. So that's great. And then I have some commercial where we outsource property management, and they have a handyman on staff.
Very nice.
So like I'm still little, I should delegate the finances and have someone collect the money, but I still handle that on my personal real estate. And then when it comes to dispatching tradespeople, I have a great network of people, but it's really hard. I mean, I joked the other day, like you look online and people are like, do you have an investor friendly electrician? I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Like, it's so hard to find good help. Like you should be paying.
Well, you know what that means? They don't want to pay shit, and it's
Right.
they just want to cut the corners and get something for cheap. That's
It's like a joke. And I'm in the service business, so my response, right? You have a little swagger about it. It's like, yeah, you want to pay the C, minus rate, like you'll get the C minus service. We'll send you the cheapest tech. Like,
I have a service business too, dude, and that rattles me. It's like, all right, oh, you guys are too expensive. Okay, go over there and pay blah blah blah, and then you'll be coming back.
Right. It's infuriating. So we're like, I'm in the recurring revenue business.
Yep.
Like that's my alarm business, and that's also at the end of the day what real estate is. Right. And you have people who want to pay $10 less, and we just say, well, the person who's paying $10 more is going to get treated better than you. Like, is that not fair? Like it is what it is. Unless you give me 1,000, 10 locations, then you get what you pay for.
All right. A quick question just for everybody. Reoccurring revenue. Walk through what that model looks like in your business, because it's important. As a hockey player, a lot of people are like, what does that mean? Because I know when I first retired from hockey, I didn't know what the hell that meant.
Right. So like I have a saying that businesses that start at zero every year petrify me. Right. So that would be Surf Row, for example. You have nobody under contract. Right. Yeah. So every year you're hoping for an event. You're hoping for a sales call to keep your team busy. Right. So the alarm business, that's why it was attractive to my father. You can create scale. You're really buying a financial instrument, right? You're buying a contract. And that is recurring is different than reoccurring. Recurring is predictable cash flow, right? So I know every month who's under contract and what that predicted cash flow is going to be. Of course, there's credit risk, right? And you can mitigate that by running credit on people, having automatic payment. But our business, the way we value it when we sell, the way we value it to specific industry lenders is a multiple of RMR. So that's recurring monthly revenue in our business. I believe, ARR is bigger for software companies, annual recurring revenue, but the alarm business is specific to the monthly recurring revenue. And that is what allows me to sleep better at night. we're not there yet where it covers all of our expenses, but that's the goal, is that your business could operate and survive based off of predictable cash flow, and you don't need to wait for Bob to call or Tom to call and say, hey, I need a fire system. Like, that your people are going to have jobs, your bills are going to get paid, and that's the name of that's the only motivation financially in our business.
And Rence, that's why real estate is important. So you have 34 doors. So if everyone pays on time, you got your mortgage, right, that you got to pay, but the rent that comes in is going to be higher. So that is, recurring revenue. You could say, all right, you're making $10,000+ a month after everything's paid. So that's your profit. So just as an example on the real estate side,
and it's like, and I view it as like, that's the exact way. And that's why I love the houses, right? It's easier. Like it's so tangible. I can run by all of them at once. And because they're smaller deals, it was easy. Like, I thought this was a great launching pad rather than, sell all 8 and then roll it into something larger. Like, it's just very easy for me to wrap my head around, what should I be reserving for maintenance costs, things of that nature when it's a 1,400-foot house.
And that's why Tom's doing the same. So Tom's doing the same exact thing. He's, he makes X amount of money here and he dumps it back into real estate and the buy and hold to be able to get to that, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 per month that you could predictably, look at and say, yep, I'm going to get that in my account every single month. That's the beauty of, you do the same thing, right? You make money on this company, dump it over here.
Right.
So I like that concept.
I remember these are the earning years, right? Compound interest. So I'm just really trying to reinvest everything. But it's the market. I mean, it's certainly getting harder and harder, as you guys see every single day. I've always said, like, because this is my side hustle, meaning real estate, I'm pretty conservative, but yet I also want higher returns if I'm going to be allocating cash somewhere that's maybe not as liquid as, putting it in the stock market. But it's the return revenue is the name of the game, and it's hopefully my retirement one day.
Love it. Tom, I know. Sorry about that. Tom hasn't said anything. Me and Rence are just going off cuff. Tom, take it away.
Looking for deals.
No, you actually reminded me. There's a couple checks over there I need you to sign because I have a closing on Monday and I need that money. So if you could, you can get on that.
See these files right here? They have Tom Neely's name on them with some pretty good numbers on them. So, yep.
No, all kidding aside. So I'm listening here, and it's, anyone ever call you Spicoli, by the way? No. Don't you look like a young Sean Penn?
I'll take it.
That's a good plug right there.
I've heard Federer, probably a lot.
No, let's talk about what's that?
I said I heard Federer, and also a lot worse.
Okay, that's good. Either way, two good-looking dudes. But let's talk about the transition. I want to, because you said something before about drinking espresso at noon on a weekday. That hit me because I remember like those moments where it's like, fuck, like this is not real life. Like I need to get to work. And for me, it happened later in my career because I had tunnel vision for 10 years or whatever it was, because I was playing over here. But then when I went over to Europe, it was great. And then there was a point where it's like, all right, it's time to grow up. Do you think that, you being thrown into do you feel like you were forced to make the transition, or was it more of a self-awareness thing when you knew it was, because you didn't play that long, no disrespect or anything. You played 1 year after college and then you made the jump.
Not even that.
Do you think it was life events that kind of made you make the transition, or were you just kind of over it like senior year and you wanted to just see what it was like before you made
I mean, I love competing, right? And that's what I miss most about the game. So I knew I would definitely miss that, but I was realistic, right? Like, I just knew that European lifestyle, and I had no ambitions and probably not the credentials or skill to come back to the US. I just knew that that's what I was looking at, right? I was going to play Italy, and if I wanted to use it to see the world and travel, that would be one thing. Or did I want to move on to the next step? But I think a lot of us, like, I really struggle with, finding peace, and it's something I'm really working on. And, like I wish I could have enjoyed it for a full year, right? And enjoy that coffee and relaxing, and just after 4, intense years of school and hockey and strict schedule. But I'm
Did you
constantly.
leave early? Did you leave in the middle of the season?
I did not. I did not.
You wrote out the
I
contract.
did, yeah, in Italy. I left early.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I left
You just
early.
couldn't do it. You were checked
Which
out.
was ultimately a blessing that my dad got sick and I was able to be home, because I would have still been over there. But yeah, it was more, and I'm still working on it, as I said, like when is enough, right? Like when can you sit back and actually enjoy it? But it's just, you're always looking for that, I don't know, that next deal or that next
Yeah,
win.
I know. It's
I'm getting better at it. Kids will mellow you out once you see they grow up so damn fast. I have 3.
Dude, it's addicting. It really is addicting. It's like, when is enough? And it's like, I think, I don't know where I heard this. It's like, if you're always cash broke, you're always going to keep working.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, if you're always going to be chasing that next deal and working and grinding, if you just don't have any money because everything's invested in real estate. So it's like, when is enough? I think that's kind of something that I struggle with. Like, I mean, Bob knows, like, conversations with my wife, my kids, like all that stuff. It's like, when are you going to be satisfied? And I think I don't think you're ever going to be satisfied, because if you were content and you rested on your laurels, like, you wouldn't have made it to junior. You wouldn't have played Division I. You wouldn't have, in this case, you didn't, but Bob, myself, you wouldn't have carved out a 8, 10, 12-year career, because it's like, what's next?
Yeah. Well, I joke that I play better guilty. So I like, having my back against the wall, but it can get stressful.
Do you, I wanted to touch on, the blue collar upbringing, because Bob and I are very similar.
No, to be clear, I don't, if I have any buddies listening to this, I grew up very privileged in a blue collar town. So I readily admit that. But I think playing hockey in a town like Hamden, with Hamden buddies, really gave me, a work ethic.
Your buddy's like, Rence, you grew up with a silver spoon, dude.
Yeah, well, I went to private school, and to be very clear, I'm a New Haven County kid. I was listening to Moffy on this podcast just to figure out what I was getting into. Moff's 2 years younger than me, but we both played mid Fairfield. We did the Yankees thing.
Oh, mid Fairfield kid.
But it's definitely New Haven versus Fairfield County, right? So we're the New Haven County boys. They're a little scared of us, but they let us come down there and play.
Let's touch on the fact that, I mean, you said it before, you guys own the company, but you were on a commission role to start. Do you think that was a testament of your dad and making you earn your way, so you weren't essentially just?
I think it was a hockey thing, man. It was like just that example of, new guy, new team. Like, you got to be able to do everyone's job before you kind of ask or earn that respect.
Sure.
My dad he would have wanted me to go right into being the man, because that's why he worked so hard, was for his kids, but that wasn't going to happen.
What advice would you? That's actually a good pivot. What advice would you give guys that are maybe have one foot out the door? Maybe they know it's their last year. They really don't know what to do. What could you say to those players that are essentially starting over again? They're going to be rookies in the real world. So how would you? What advice would you give?
Reach out to everyone. Have as many conversations as you can. Some of the Harvard guys that had great careers. They were calling me. Not that I had a ton of insight, but they were calling me once a month. Just asking questions and who else do you know? So I would really utilize this network. There's a ton of mutual respect amongst people who played hockey at any level. Other advice is, it's a lot easier to find a job when you have one, right? You might not find the perfect fit, but it's going to show that you're a hard worker, that you can make a commitment. But I think what made you successful in hockey will make you successful in the real world. I mean, if you weren't a hard worker, if you weren't willing to earn it, then you're probably not going to make it in business. You should probably go work a 9 to 5. But if you're willing to put in the time and, know what you don't know, which is incredibly important when you're starting new, and ask those questions, you're going to be just fine.
Awesome. Well, Bob, what do you got?
Yeah. I just want to break it down a little bit, and I know we're coming to the 35-minute mark. which is pretty impressive, Rence, on how you actually got into the business. You started obviously in the, you didn't understand business ownership yet, right? When you're thrown in the fire.
I had no idea how to read an income statement.
Yeah, and owning a business is a lot more than reading an income statement as well. It's managing people, right? So, what was your first transition into ownership? Because people are probably looking at you saying, "All right, you didn't grow this, kid. You inherited this business." So, for you, what did the background of being in hockey help? To maybe get you thick skin, like. You obviously learned from the passing of your dad of, don't sweat the small stuff, right?
Right.
But going into it, walk us through that process when you actually first got that role as business owner, because you didn't start from the bottom, man. You started from the top, and now people are looking at you saying, "Dude, I wonder if this kid can make it. I know he's a Harvard grad, but does this kid got the balls to make it? Does he have the the gall to make it? Does he have the intestinal fortitude? What did that look like?"
Yeah, so we were essentially like insolvent until 2018, right? So there was like 5 years of scratching and clawing. We had I would say probably going through a process where we had an industry bank, and the industry bank loan was coming due, right? And that's when you really, when it comes to business, like you really became like a man, right? It was either, you start to learn and you get the confidence that, at the end of the day, the banks, and it's the same with real estate, like they're not in the business of owning real estate, right? They want you to succeed. But I would say through extreme adversity, situations like that, battling with an ex-partner, was when really just kind of elevated me, because you were forced to, right? You had to step up. At the time, we probably had 60 people, maybe a little less, but we've doubled in size probably in the last 10 years. We've made other strategic acquisitions, but what really, forced me into that role of being an owner, I would say, was just extreme adversity, which is there's no choice, but you're either going to survive or you're not.
It's paying the bills, man. You'll do you will scratch and claw to get over that hump. And just to your point, if you're a new hockey player or you're anybody listening to this podcast, you will go through business partner breakups. You 100% will. So that's a norm. So don't get all rattled. You can connect with myself.
Yeah.
With Rence on how to get through that stuff, because that's a challenge in and of itself. And that does give you thick skin to be able to overcome that stuff.
Bob, and you're absolutely right. And just unsolicited advice for people, like you address it in the operating agreement, right? It's going to be painful emotionally, no matter what, right? It's a breakup. And I was fortunate. My father was an attorney. Like if I have partners on new ventures, like we play out every scenario, right? What happens if I die? Like no one wants to talk about that. Do you want to be partners with my wife? Probably not.
Correct.
Well, how are you going to pay her? Because I don't want her to be partners with you.
Yep. So have a buyout inside that.
Yeah. So just going through every scenario, and they're hard conversations. No one wants to talk about that.
Yeah, they're awful.
What if you go broke? Well, I'm not going to go broke. But what if you do, dude? Like, what if the bank comes through? Like, you really need to get ahead of it. And I've learned early on, like, you want the other side to have really good counsel, right? When you're immature and young, at least I was this way. You're like, well, I kind of hope my lawyer is smarter than his, so maybe we'll win.
Yeah.
No, you want him or her to have great counsel. You want really smart people in a room, hashing out all these details.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the takeaway there is no matter what in business, you're going to get into these things, and you'll have you've been in this long enough, whether it's real estate, whether it's, business, you're going to go through some challenges like that. But I think one of the takeaways here is have thick skin and don't sweat the small stuff. I'm telling you that no matter what. And the transition, you freaking nailed it, dude. Like that is 100% true. 100%. So let's put a cap on this. Some of the takeaways, obviously, that you've gone through. One of the things that I love is any type of business. So if you're looking to get into business, you're going to start at a certain level. And it took you you almost went broke a bunch of times. And 2018 is really when, from there on, you started, turning the corner. So business is a long game. Real estate's a long game. and you are going to go through ups and downs and all this stuff. But in the end, look at a business that could potentially give you reoccurring revenue. I think that is a freaking huge. So one of my businesses is reoccurring revenue. One of them is it's you're flipping contracts. So just like Serve Pro, it's that type of business. Serve Pro is not a reoccurring revenue business. It's you hope something happens so you can make money here, right? So in different business, buy and hold, real estate, reoccurring revenue, right? Your American Total Protection, recurring revenue. So there's different business models. So what's your takeaway on before people jump into an industry? What research would you recommend they do?
I think it goes back to utilizing the network and talking to as many possible people as you can. I mean, there's a lot of people out there willing to help. If you're, especially if you're not in my territory, right, and I don't view you as a competitor, like you can ride shotgun on any deal. Right. I had a great call yesterday with a Harvard classmate. Didn't play hockey, but he has a search fund, right? So he's looking for an entrepreneurship by acquisition, right? Looking for a business to buy, and it's a similar industry as mine in the Serve Pro space, and offering to share. Did you want to have a Zoom, and I'll share my income statement with you so you can compare it to the business you're looking at, right? So I would reach out to a teammate. Someone. It's so funny growing up, right? You remember the names of who you always used to face, and guys would love to reconnect and go down memory lane with you, and just kind of asking for that advice and kind of post-mortem of deals. People love sharing, and people really do love helping. So, just reach out, whether it's me or anyone else.
Yep, that's great advice, Tom. I know we're coming to the 40-minute mark. What do you got? Any last parting?
Just thank you. Thank you for hopping on. Thank you for taking the time and explaining what you do and helping guys, understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, whether it be, securities, whether it be fire, whether it be Serve Pro, real estate, any type of sales job where it's commission based. In my opinion, it's the best way to earn a living as an ex-athlete, because the possibilities are endless. There's no cap on what you could make, and the harder you work, the better you're going to succeed and see the returns. And I think
Tom, you nailed it, right? Like, as an owner, I want my sales guys to make more than I do, right? Like, and I think the good ones are like that. So someone who's thinking, I got to be the boss. I know, one, you could probably sleep better at night if you're not worrying about paying 69 other people. But, like you said, the hardest worker in the room will win when it comes to commission sales.
So Rence, someone's looking, you got a player that's in the locker room. He's like, you know what? I want to look at. I saw this podcast at Rence. I'm interested in his business or joining your team. What does that look like? How do people get in touch? And what is the individual that you're looking for, in what states?
Yeah, so reach out to me on LinkedIn. I go by Rence, short for Lawrence, but on LinkedIn it's Rence Coassin. Feel free to shoot me a message. I'm hiring for sales. So we're in Connecticut, Hamden, Connecticut. We cover the entire state. So I'm really looking for someone in Hartford or Fairfield County. And then in Florida, we are in Brevard County in a town called Melbourne, the Space Coast. And we're trying to stay in that county. So probably as far east as Orlando and within an hour of Melbourne. So anybody looking to have fun and just meet people, that's all our job. I'm in a great industry that we sell something mandated by code, right? Like, you need a fire alarm if you want to open your restaurant, if you want to open that apartment building, right? There's a lot of government funding, so there's always spending on security. There's grants. So I just look for people who are willing to have conversations. So if you view yourself as a social person who knows how to use a computer and not afraid of being told no, I'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. Love it. Well, with that being said, Rence, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Tom, thank you very much. Like I said, thank you everybody for listening to this episode, and let's have a kick-ass day. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, boys. Have a good one. See you around Connecticut.